So I ended up with a brilliant idea. I put them on pure fat, and I picked a fat that their doctors wouldn't object to, olive oil. Everyone liked olive oil in those days. And I gave them 2 jiggers, shot glasses full. It was 900 extra calories a day. We split it, 1.5 ounces morning and night. And to flavor it so that they would tolerate it, I had a more brilliant idea. We used Myers Dark Rum. And the only one who got drunk on it was my aunt in Florida, who was the 5th person. She couldn't tolerate the... she got drunk every time she took it. Anyway, we're giving them 900 extra calories a day for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, no one had gained a pound. I couldn't understand it. So I called Sam Seifter, formerly chief of biochemistry at Downstate, and in these days he was at Einstein. I knew him very well, and his specialty was carbohydrate and fat metabolism. I said, why did this happen? He had no idea. He said, I'll ask some friends. So he asked around, he couldn't find out. I didn't know until April of the year 2000, when an article came out in the journal Diabetes Care, where they took 10 non-diabetic men and they had them on high-carbo, high-fat diets and low-carbo, high-fat diets, and they wanted to see which one was going to gain weight. The diets were isocaloric because they adjusted the protein so that both groups would get the same amount of protein. And then halfway through the study, they switched everyone into another group so that they could get the reverse on every patient. And they did something unique. They gave these people radioactive carbon. And they literally looked with a Geiger counter or other measuring device, where did the carbon from their fat end up? Those on the high-carbo diet, the carbon ended up around their middle. Those on the low-carbo, high-fat diet, the carbon ended up in their breath, carbon dioxide. So they were metabolizing fat, but the people on the high-carbo diet were storing the fat. And immediately, my biochemistry added up, and there's an enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase that we now know removes the second fatty acid from triglyceride. And apparently that removal of that second fatty acid is the rate-limiting step. Once you've done that, it's easy for other enzymes to remove the third fatty acid and other enzymes to oxidize the fatty acids. So, and insulin turns off hormone-sensitive lipase. So the people who are getting a lot of carbo and making a lot of insulin could not metabolize fats. The enzyme that does it was turned off. Straight, plain and simple. Absolutely elementary.
Why is it stored this early?
Why? That's a good question. I don't know why. Maybe Richard knows. You know, we know that it's stored in a lot of places. It's stored inside muscle. It's stored in other sites. You just showed me a few. But for some reason or other, the visceral fat tends to be greater. Yes.
Are you familiar with the practice of people just taking additional lipase enzymes, digestive enzymes on an empty stomach to try and lower their triglycerides?
I wonder whether that would be of any value. It would help you digest fats.
A lot of people have fat malabsorption now today,
Yeah,
so they actually end up having high cholesterol because of fat malabsorption.
Okay, well then that's a possibility.
This is a slightly different schedule, so I'm wondering, I know everybody has a lot of questions for you.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that we can get them answered some other way, like maybe on a...
Okay, I was hoping to give the new information that related to that hypo. I'll state it very briefly.
Okay.
I've discovered that, well, I discovered 8 years ago that I had a severe immunodeficiency syndrome. I've actually had it since childhood. I used to get sinusitis every winter when I was 3 years old. And over the years, it got worse and worse. Finally, about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I had such severe sinusitis all year round that it was disabling. I also had diarrhea. Thought maybe I had some Giardia infection or something. The test turned out to be negative, but I tested myself for immune deficiency by testing the immunoglobulins, IgA, IgG, IgM. These are antibodies. Turned out that I had almost no IgA, which is the immunoglobulin of the mucous membranes. That means respiratory tract and digestive system, my two symptoms.
This is why you became type 1.
It probably relates to the etiology of diabetes. It's not been investigated because we haven't published this. Now, I ended up, I also discovered that I had lymphoma. I said, let's look at my lymphocytes, and I had lymphoma. So, due to an immune deficiency, anyone with severe immune deficiency is much more likely to develop cancers. So I got treated for the lymphoma with an antibody to the CD20 lymphoma cells, and usually that returns within 5 years. But I also got gamma globulin to replace my missing antibodies. I get it every other week. IV infusion takes 3 hours. And after 2 years of gamma globulin, I say to my immunologist, you know, I'm getting severe hypoglycemia. It comes at random. I never had this before. He says, I said, have you seen anything like this? He says, oh, sure, all the type 1s who get gamma globulin get it. So I said, why? He says, because there appears to be a recovery of beta cells, and they're making insulin at random. Okay. Well, 8 years ago, after I discovered my affliction, every time I had a patient with sinusitis, or on routine chemistry screening, low globulins, or a high serum beta-2 microglobulin, I would do an immunoglobulin profile on it. And also cancer screening tests. And lo and behold, 40% of my patients have an immune deficiency. Only 4 of them as severe as mine. And those 4 are getting gamma globulin. What?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
We're not going to have time, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're running really, really
Okay, in
late.
any
We don't have
event,
a question, but we will make
all
it-
4
your questions available.
all 4 of these people started getting hypoglycemia at the beginning. I warned them to check their blood sugar every hour when they're on gamma globulin because they're in for potential trouble. And some of them do, and when they slip, they get hypoglycemia. And I didn't check my blood sugar every hour. It took me 2 hours to get here. I waited here an hour, didn't check my blood sugar. Too late. Okay? Thank you.